Across the vast grasslands of the American West, a new world had emerged during the 19th century. The plains stretched for hundreds of miles, where great herds of buffalo once moved like dark rivers across the horizon. In this land, the horse had transformed entire cultures. Nations such as the Lakota, the Cheyenne, and the Arapaho had become masters of the open plains. Their warriors rode with speed and discipline across a landscape they understood better than anyone else. For generations, these nations had defended their lands and followed the migrations of the buffalo, which sustained their way of life. But during the 19th century, the world around them began to change. Railroads pushed westward across the continent. Settlers and miners arrived in growing numbers. The discovery of gold in the Black Hills brought thousands of prospectors into lands that the Lakota considered sacred and protected by treaty. Tension grew as the United States government demanded that native nations move onto reservations. Many bands refused. They chose to remain free upon the plains where their ancestors had lived and hunted. Among the leaders of this resistance were the Lakota spiritual leader Sitting Bull and the fearless war leader Crazy Horse. They were joined by warriors from the Cheyenne and Arapaho nations, who shared the same determination to defend their homeland. In the summer of 1876, the United States Army launched a campaign to force the Plains nations onto reservations. Several military columns were sent into the northern plains with orders to locate and confront the native encampments. One of these forces was led by the ambitious cavalry officer George Armstrong Custer. Custer commanded the 7th Cavalry and believed that he could strike a decisive blow against the native forces if he moved quickly. When his scouts reported a large encampment along the Little Bighorn River, he believed he had found his opportunity. What Custer did not realize was that the camp before him was far larger than anything his army had faced before. Thousands of Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho people had gathered there, including hundreds of experienced warriors. On June 25, 1876, Custer divided his regiment and advanced toward the encampment. As his soldiers approached the valley, the warriors of the plains began to ride out to meet them. What followed would become one of the most famous battles in the history of the American frontier. The confrontation is remembered today as the Battle of the Little Bighorn. In a fierce and chaotic struggle, the Plains warriors surrounded and overwhelmed Custer and his battalion. The 7th Cavalry was defeated, and the news of the battle shocked the American nation. For the Plains nations, the battle was a powerful victory and a moment of unity among many tribes who had come together to defend their land and their way of life. For the United States, it became a symbol of the intense struggle that marked the final years of the frontier wars. Among the warriors who rode that day were leaders whose names would become legends of the plains. Their courage, their skill in battle, and their commitment to their people made them symbols of resistance and strength in the history of North America. Crazy Horse. Among the greatest warriors of the plains was the Lakota leader Crazy Horse. Quiet and reserved, he rarely spoke in public, yet his reputation among the Lakota warriors was unmatched. From a young age, Crazy Horse showed remarkable courage in battle and an extraordinary ability to move quickly across the plains with his warriors. Crazy Horse believed deeply in the traditions of his people and in the responsibility to protect the lands where the Lakota had lived for generations. During the conflicts of the 1870s, he became one of the most respected war leaders among the Plains nations. Warriors followed him because they trusted his courage and his instincts in battle. At the Battle of the Little Bighorn, Crazy Horse played a decisive role. As the American cavalry advanced toward the encampment, he led warriors in a rapid counterattack that struck the soldiers from multiple directions. His leadership helped create the momentum that allowed the Plains warriors to surround and defeat Custer's battalion. To the Lakota people, Crazy Horse became a symbol of bravery and loyalty to his nation. Even today, his name is remembered as one of the greatest warriors of the American plains. Sitting Bull. Another legendary leader present during the events surrounding the Battle of the Little Bighorn was the Lakota spiritual leader Sitting Bull. Unlike Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull was not primarily known as a battlefield commander. His influence came from his role as a spiritual guide and a leader whose words carried great authority among the Lakota people. Sitting Bull believed strongly that the Plains nations had the right to live freely upon their lands. As tensions grew with the United States government, he encouraged unity among the tribes who wished to remain independent. Before the battle, Sitting Bull held a sacred ceremony and experienced a powerful vision. In that vision, he saw soldiers falling from the sky into the Lakota camp, which many interpreted as a sign that victory would come to the warriors of the plains. Although he did not personally lead the charge in battle, Sitting Bull's leadership helped unite many different bands of Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors. His presence strengthened the resolve of the people gathered along the Little Bighorn River. After the battle, Sitting Bull became one of the most famous native leaders in North America. His name traveled across newspapers and stories as a symbol of resistance and leadership during the final years of the frontier wars. Together, the stories of Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull reveal how the warriors of the plains stood together during one of the most dramatic moments in the history of the American frontier. Their courage and determination became part of the larger story of a land where nations fought to protect their people and their way of life. Chapter Crazy Horse. Among the warriors of the northern plains, one name carried a reputation that spread across many nations. That name was Crazy Horse. Born around the year 1840 among the Oglala Lakota, Crazy Horse grew up during a time when the plains were still ruled by the great buffalo herds and the freedom of horseback travel. From an early age, he was taught the values that defined Lakota life: courage in battle, loyalty to the people, and respect for the traditions passed down through generations. As a young warrior, Crazy Horse quickly gained the respect of others. He was known for his fearlessness in combat and his ability to move quickly across the open plains. Unlike many leaders, he did not seek fame or speak often in councils. He preferred action over words, and his quiet determination earned him the trust of the warriors who rode beside him. During the growing conflicts between the Plains nations and the United States Army, Crazy Horse became one of the most capable war leaders among the Lakota. As settlers, railroads, and soldiers pushed deeper into the western territories, many native nations saw their hunting grounds threatened and their freedom restricted. Crazy Horse believed that the Lakota had a responsibility to defend the land that had sustained their people for generations. One of the earliest moments that brought him recognition came during the battle known as the Fetterman Fight in 1866. In that battle, Lakota and Cheyenne warriors used strategy and patience to draw a group of American soldiers into an ambush. The result was one of the most decisive defeats suffered by the United States Army during the frontier wars. Crazy Horse played a key role in the tactics that led to that victory. 10 years later, the plains would witness an even more dramatic confrontation. In the summer of 1876, thousands of Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho gathered near the banks of the Little Bighorn River. Many of them had refused orders from the United States government to move onto reservations. They had come together determined to remain free upon the plains. When the 7th Cavalry, under the command of George Armstrong Custer, approached the encampment, the warriors of the plains prepared to defend their people. The battle that followed would become known as the Battle of the Little Bighorn. During the fighting, Crazy Horse led warriors in fast-moving attacks that struck the cavalry from multiple directions. Riding across the battlefield with extraordinary speed, he helped organize the resistance that eventually surrounded Custer and his battalion. The 7th Cavalry was defeated, and the victory stunned the American public when news of the battle reached the eastern states. For the Lakota and their allies, the battle represented a powerful moment of unity and strength. Crazy Horse emerged from the conflict as one of the most respected war leaders among the Plains nations. Yet even after such a victory, he remained the same quiet figure who avoided attention and spoke little about his accomplishments. In the years that followed, the power of the United States continued to grow across the western territories. The great buffalo herds began to disappear, and the freedom of the plains grew more difficult to defend. Eventually, Crazy Horse and his followers were forced to surrender in 1877. Even in defeat, his reputation never faded. Among the Lakota, he remained a symbol of courage, loyalty, and resistance. To this day, the name Crazy Horse is remembered as one of the greatest warriors of the American plains, a man who stood for his people during one of the most dramatic chapters of the frontier era. The warriors of the plains fought for their people, their land, and their way of life. They rode across the open horizon with courage, discipline, and loyalty to the generations who had come before them. Their battles were not only about territory, but about identity and the responsibility to protect what they believed was sacred. Time moved forward, and the frontier slowly changed. The buffalo disappeared, the railroads crossed the plains, and new towns rose where great camps once stood. Yet the spirit of those warriors did not vanish with the passing of that era. Across the generations, the same values continued to shape the character of the nation that grew upon that land. Courage in the face of hardship, loyalty to family and community, the determination to stand firm when the moment demands strength. In many ways, the spirit of the Plains warriors became part of the larger American story. The idea that ordinary people can face overwhelming challenges and still stand their ground. The belief that honor and resilience can shape the destiny of a nation. The riders of the Plains may belong to another century, but the spirit they carried still echoes in the character of the people who walk that land today. A reminder that courage does not belong to the past. It lives on in every generation, willing to face the unknown and keep moving forward.